Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world, welcome to the show. This is the Millennial Millionaire Podcast, and I am your host, Steven Cohen. This podcast is focused on bringing some of the wisest minds from across the globe to discuss concepts, strategies, and ideals that will lead them to be top performers in their respective industries and their lives. This show is for the millennials and millennials at heart to transcend their mindset, their health, and their income to the next level. We are so excited to have you on this journey with us. Welcome to the show. Welcome back to the Millennial Millionaire Podcast. I am your host, Steven Cohen. Today's guest, we have Bryce Matheson. Bryce is a serial entrepreneur, real estate investor. He's in the private and hard money lending space. He's built 3 different SaaS companies with successful exits. He's a husband, a father. Seems like a really cool dude. Thanks for being on the show, dude.
Hey, thanks for having me. Hopefully we can impart some wisdom to the audience.
I think we can, man. I think we can. So, Bryce, for those that don't know who you are, give a little background about how you got into entrepreneurship, a little bit about your journey, and then we're going to hop right into it.
Sure. Okay. I don't know. Right now I feel like the word entrepreneur is kind of like a sexy buzzword.
It's everywhere.
It is, but I don't know. I've been peddling candy on the playground, since I was 9 years old or whatever. So when I say serial entrepreneur, like I've always had something, up my sleeve. So I've always had little businesses here and there, but the kind of big successful ones that have done well for us is mainly real estate. And then, like you said, a couple different software companies. So, and now we're taking those two worlds and kind of merging those together. But we can dive into those.
Yeah,
obviously.
I agree with you, dude. I feel like probably the last decade, the word entrepreneur is just everywhere, right? You could be really anything that's other than your traditional normal 9 to 5, and you're considered an entrepreneur. Where I feel like maybe a couple decades ago, it seems like we're around the same age. Before we were in our professional life, it seemed like entrepreneur wasn't as sexy.
Right.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think so many people are now going into the entrepreneur realm or have that entrepreneur spirit? Is it with the internet and social media? Or is it more of just people getting away from the norm?
I mean, I think it's all of that probably plays into it. I think like a lot of people right now are questioning the norms, like nobody really wants to do the 9 to 5 and just like, you work at one place for 45 years and you don't change, like our parents did. And I think there's lots of things people are just starting to question, like, do I really want to do this forever? And so I think if you don't want to do that, entrepreneurship is the natural alternative. And again, we can dive more into that, but I personally believe that not everyone should be an entrepreneur. I think, like I said, it is a buzzword. It is sexy. Add it to your Instagram profile. The Gary V's, everyone's kind of touting it, but it's not for everyone. It's hard.
What do you think makes a successful entrepreneur?
I think it's something that's deeply ingrained in you. You're just always like hungry for more, and you're kind of like that kid in class who was always like rebelling, or just I don't know, just like in your hard, like you can't fit in this little box, And so I think, just like I said, I think naturally it's I don't fit here, so let me go into this amorphous thing where I can create my own rigidity and my own structure, and then I'll fit there or I'll belong somewhere over here.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. At least I think of my own journey of wanting to get away from the quote unquote system. And I was very money motivated at first. And then I realized it's not just about money, it's about freedom and living life on your own terms.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to do that when you have a boss and you have these constraints. For you, what was really the push for you to get into the fields that you got into, right? You've had your hands in a lot of different pots. What was the initial motivation to start going away from maybe what your parents did or from other people around you into the space of your own boss?
Sure. For me, I think it was just kind of the lack or feeling like there was a lack growing up. I wouldn't say that there really was a lack. I grew up in a very, very fortunate circumstances. I don't want to downplay my upbringing by any, stretch of the imagination. Just my dad worked a job that he hated and despised for, like I said, 35, 40 plus years. And we never went without, like we always had food on the table. I don't have this like rags to riches story or anything like that. Very, very fortunate. But was money tight? Absolutely. There were definitely times where people were taking, my friends were taking lavish vacations and we didn't have anything like that. We were very much like, we're going to stay out of debt and just kind of scrimp and save and move along. And it was great. Like I said, don't want to downplay that at all. But that kind of desperation or that lack, I think it definitely builds a sense of longing. And so I wanted not only for myself, but my kids and wife and everybody else to have the exact opposite.
Yeah, it's so interesting. You know, your dad was an example to some degree in the professional life of what you didn't want. They modeled that. Same thing for my parents. My parents worked a job their whole life just to get ends meet. They hated it. They didn't enjoy it. They were always tired and complaining. So growing up in the home, it was like, well, I know I don't want that. So naturally, I wanted something else. And I think that stems a lot of young ambition, because I think in the space of entrepreneurs and creators and influencers, right? Social media over the last 10 years has really exposed the different types of lifestyles that you can live and the different opportunities with the internet and with the communication age. You don't have to go do what our parents did in the baby boomers. But I still have so many friends that I went to high school with in college that they don't like their job. Maybe they're comfortable, but they're not fulfilled in what they do, or they don't like the amount of money they're making, but they're also not willing to make a change. What do you think about is the determining factor for maybe the younger generation in the 20s that decide to do something different than maybe what their parents did?
Yeah. Ooh, that's a good question. I think it really just comes down to grit and willpower, unfortunately. I wish there was an easy button that you could just say this is what you need to do, but it's not as easy as everyone makes it out to be. There's a lot of hard work, and it's never been easier to be mediocre and just we have all these luxuries at our fingertips. And so it is very easy to sit on the couch and just scroll all day and look at all these people with six packs and beautiful, gorgeous models of wives and you're just poor me. So we have all the resources at our fingertips, but so while it's never been so easy to be successful with the internet and YouTube University and, everything, it's also never been easier to be this mediocre.
That's well said. You brought up victimhood a little bit. Talk to me about victimhood.
Yes. I hate the victim mindset. It drives me nuts. Especially, I put out a reel this week actually that was talking about I can't stand the people who pretend to be a victim, especially in a circumstance that they created themselves. There's a quote by Gary Vee, and I'll probably butcher it, but he's like, people build their own jails and then live inside of it. They have to have the fancy apartment or the fancy cars, but now you have to go to work to pay for this fancy apartment that you can't even live in because you're going to work. And so it really is just this is your own fault, and you can't blame anybody else but yourself.
Yeah, I agree. They say maturity is it's not an age, but it's when you come to the realization that everything you have in your life is because of you, all the good, all the bad. And until you can really take full 100% ownership over everything that's in your life, you're technically not mature, because now you don't have the power in order to change it if you're blaming your circumstances and all the different reasons on why you're not successful. Let's talk about real estate a little bit, dude. Sure. I know you're a real estate guy, or at least you started in real estate. That's really where you cut your teeth. Walk me with your real estate journey. I know you bought your first house in 2016. Tell me about that process and the evolution of where you are now, where you have, a multi-million-dollar real estate portfolio.
Sure. Yeah. So, like you said, 2016, bought my first property. And the funny thing is nowadays there's and I guess that it was still the same terminology back then, but house hacking was a big, I'm sure everyone's talked about that. I was so naive, I didn't even know what house hacking was, I remember I got my first big boy job out of college, and it wasn't even I'm going to live for free and rent out the bedrooms and do all these things. It was more just I'm a big boy now and I have the big boy job, and so now I need the big boy house. And that was all the logic and thinking that had gone into it. It was never I'm going to be a real estate investor. I'm never going to have this giant portfolio. I'm never going to do all these things. But anyway, so I found a house, and I at the time I laughed. I was so naive that I remember finding a house that I was I want to see if maybe we'd buy this one. I didn't even know that you had to have a realtor to go look at a house. I walked up to the front porch and knocked on the door, and I was I might want to buy your house. And they were you're retarded. You should probably call our realtor. I was so naive. So just kind of setting the stage, that's where I came from. Anyway, ended up buying a house. I was living in an apartment with a couple of buddies at the time. And so I was great, just come move into my house, pay me rent. This will be great. And I had it was a 4-bedroom house. So 3 of my buddies came and moved in. At the end of the day, it covered, I think it was $375 per room that we rented it for, and my mortgage was like $850.
This was back in 2016.
Yes, yeah. So numbers are very different now, very different. But we so all said and done, at the end of the month, I think they covered my whole mortgage, and there was like some money left over for gas and probably a steak. So it was great. Like I loved it. And then about 2 years later, my life had kind of changed. Like I was engaged, ready to get married. And my wife at the time, she also was house hacking and doing the exact same thing. So independently, she had her own house and she was renting out the rooms. And so that was one of the things that actually made me fall in love with her. Like when on our first date, we went on this hike and we joked that we fell in love at first interest rate.
Power couple.
Yeah, right. Just because like the whole hike, I was like, so what do your roommates pay and what's your interest rate? And like, how are you cash flowing and how are you writing this off and doing this? And that was just, kind of like that first bonding moment.
That's pretty cool, dude.
So
I need to make sure my fiance starts buying houses.
Right.
I feel like we connect on a deeper
Tell
level.
her to get on it. Yeah.
Yeah. Real estate's so interesting, dude. So you got into the game really early, 2016. I didn't buy my first house till 2019, going on 2020.
Okay.
I think it's the same kind of principles with like compound interest, right? It's almost kind of like, I think the hardest part about real estate is getting your first one. And I don't know if you agree, but it's the unknown. Most people don't take action on things because they are scared of the unknown. So, Hey, how do I, like you said, right? You were ignorance on fire. Yeah. And I'm a firm believer that ignorance on fire is better than knowledge on ice. Sometimes if you have all the information, you don't take action because you're paralyzed. But if you don't know anything, you'll figure it out eventually. So you get your first house, you learn what house hacking is, and you get kind of infatuated with the concept of having other people, pay for your lifestyle and pay it down. How did you evolve from one house to where you are right now?
Yeah. So good question. So going back, I would probably do it differently just because I was ignorant and didn't know what I was doing. But when I got married, we actually ended up selling my house. And we just moved into my wife's house. So it wasn't really back then it was like, it was nice that I didn't have a mortgage and I was living for free, but it wasn't really like, oh, I should keep doing this or keep scaling this portfolio. So we moved into my wife's house, sold my house. And I remember, when the property sold, I walked out of the title company with a check for $40,000.
It's a lot of money.
And at the time, coincidentally enough, I was making $40,000 at my job.
In a year.
And so I was like, holy shit, you're
Lightbulb.
telling me like that was the catalyst that set it off. I was like, I just made the same amount of money by selling one house. What if I had 10 houses? And that was really like, okay, this is what set it off. So we took the proceeds, the $40,000. I had a little bit of student debt, nothing crazy, probably $15,000 or so. So we paid off that, paid off some credit cards. And then with whatever was left over, we used that to buy our first 12 units in, I think, span of 12 months or so.
So you evolved from real estate over to the residential real estate over to the commercial side.
Not so much commercial. It's still a small multifamily, so like duplexes, and I think we had 2 duplexes and a 4-plex.
Got it. It wasn't a 12 unit. It was multiple.
It was multiple buildings. Yeah.
Okay. And then at that point, were you like, hey, I want to go full in on this real estate investment thing? Or is it more just kind of like a means to an end and a place to put your money?
I was definitely like full steam ahead, our first, I still to this day, like our first non-owner occupied house that we bought. I don't know that I'll ever be able to like surpass that cash on cash. Like it was just an insane deal and I didn't even know it. So the house was, $93,000, which I now people just like, are like, are you kidding me? Those prices. But what was great was in the backyard was I didn't know it at the time, but unpermitted like mobile home that someone had just parked there in the 80s. So the house obviously we bought with a mortgage, and then the mobile home was kind of like a freebie. And so we had like a duplex of sorts, and I think the mortgage on the house was around $700 or $600 a month. I think it was $650, and it was cash flowing over $1,000. After all expenses and mortgage and everything were paid. And so I was like, whoa, this is awesome. Not only do I not have to live in this, but people pay us cash flow. And so, the cash on cash on that, because I didn't have a primary residence at the time, so I used my owner occupied. Anyway, now it's mortgage fraud, but besides the point.
It's a whole other conversation.
Anyway, but so that was kind of the catalyst that set it off. And so once we had the taste of that, it was like, okay, let's keep steamrolling this, and that's kind of what led to those 12 units in the first 12 months.
Let's go, dude. And then obviously you made a pivot from buying rentals to now the lending side. Talk to me about that whole process. I think I saw a video of yours, how if you could go back in time, you would never, invest into another job. So tell me about that concept, because I think a lot of people, everyone's on social media. Everyone sees all the real estate gurus, the Grant Cardones, and everyone that says, invest, right? Live below your means, do all the things, which I agree to some extent. You have a different philosophy about rentals. Talk to me about that.
Sure. Yeah. So similar to a lot of people, I think, like, you do the math, right? And you're like, if I just had X number of doors or number of units, like, I could quit my job. And like, I had all the spreadsheets, I had all the things, I did all the numbers. But the thing is, having 2 doors is very different than having 45 doors. And so when we had 2 units and you're making $1,000 a month in cash flow, you're like, this is great. And up until around 10 units, it's not really a full-blown operation. You don't have like necessarily a property manager. You're small. I mean, you could have a property manager if you wanted, but most of the time, like, you kind of get your feet wet, you dip your toes, and you're like, okay, we'll do this, we'll self-manage this, we'll do that. And after a while, as you scale up, your business obviously grows and scales. And so I remember one time, like, I set my sights on, I want to have 40 doors, because I did the math, $250 give or take per door. If I have 250 or 40 doors, I can replace my job, make $10,000.
And you're free.
Whatever. Great. Yeah. So freedom. And then, like, 4 or 5 years later, we kind of blinked and we were like, oh, we hit that. I remember looking at my QuickBooks one day, and we were at like $12,000 a month net. But what was funny is, like, I expected it to be this euphoric experience. Like you just, summited this Mount Everest, and you're like, wow, I finally got there. And instead, like, I kind of just was like, ugh, like, I just kind of felt like the money was nice, and I'm not downplaying that, but it was more like what it represented. Like, I now have all of these buildings and all these roofs and all these water heaters and all these HVAC systems and all these things that I just have to worry about. And for whatever reason, I just couldn't, like, even with a property manager, I couldn't, like, detach myself mentally. Like, it still weighed on my mind. And I think that just comes down to my personality type, is just like, I want to make sure that everything is, like, running well behind the scenes, even if somebody else is managing it. And until this day, I still don't really believe in property managers, just because I don't really think they're going to run your business the same that you would. They don't care. Anyway, so it was just that weight on my mind. And so what kind of slowly happened was, initially we ran out of cash, and that's a problem that a lot of people have, is you want to buy more units or more doors, but you don't have the cash. And so what we would do is we would buy a rental, and then we would run out of cash, and we would need more money for a down payment. And so we would buy a flip or 2, and we would do that, sell those, take the profits, and then use the profits as a down payment on the next one. And we'd flip 1 or 2 more houses, and then just use that and continue to scale up. And funny enough, we started to realize, oh, we actually really enjoy doing the flips more than we like doing the rentals. And so we stopped acquiring the rentals, and we still kept our portfolio. We just didn't really add to it.
Sure.
But I got really into, like, the construction and the renovation side. My wife really got into the wallpaper and the accent walls and the paint colors and, decorations and everything. So it was really fun. We had a foreman that did a lot of the work for us. We had everybody on payroll. Like, we had a whole crew as a whole thing. And so, yeah, we stopped acquiring rentals. And then over the next 5, 6, 7 years, we did about almost 100 flips.
Wow.
In that time.
Did your guys' strategy change during that moment? Because in my mind, right, you're acquiring rentals. I have 4 single families in Vegas, so not the multifamily game yet. But in my mind, it's more of a long-term asset that, over a long enough period of time, appreciation, depreciating, X, Y, and Z. That's why most people buy rentals. You're not going to get rich off of $600, $400, $300 a month in cash flow, but you hope that's compounded in X amount of time, and then, you have this lump sum of money instead of putting into a savings account or to a stock account. Where the flip game, in my mind, is more of instant gratification. It's more of active income because, you're taking the money and then you're reinvesting, so on and so forth. So I could see how less emotional attachment to the rental from you guys, which is obviously a lot more freeing and peace of mind and the fun behind it. But did your long-term wealth strategy change during that moment, or what was your mindset there?
So my mindset has changed a ton, a lot. And what's funny is, like, if you'd gone back in time and asked me, I probably would have called myself an idiot. But now, everybody talks about, like, the tax benefits, for example. Like, you can write off so many things, and then you get the depreciation and things like that. I personally, I believe depreciation is bullshit. I don't really believe it anymore, just because, kind of foreshadowing with the rest of the story, like we ended up liquidating our entire portfolio and we sold all of those units. And the funny thing is the IRS always gets paid no matter what. And so, we depreciated those properties and we had cost segregations and all different things. But the funny thing is you're not really like losing anything. You're not really writing anything off. You're just kicking that can down the road. So when we sold those properties, guess what? We had a hefty tax bill that we had to pay. So is it
that
nice?
Long-term capital gains?
Yes. Yep. So, it is a little bit more tax efficient, but it helps with offsetting your income in the here and now, but you still have to pay it at some point in the future. So anyway, my mindset and mentality on the whole thing has kind of changed over time.
So you don't have any properties right now?
No, not anymore. Yeah, we sold all of them.
Wow.
Actually, we sold our last duplex last week.
Huh? Well,
Yeah.
congrats, dude.
Thanks. Yeah, it's great. I feel awesome.
Well, it's interesting because everyone else is coming on for the most part and preaching the opposite. You know,
Yes.
it's invest all your money in real estate, keep it long term, make sure that you have enough cash flow so you can hold the property. So eventually you get the mortgage paid down and you get the long term appreciation, and real estate always goes up, and all the things you hear from every type of realtor lender outside of there. You've done the complete opposite. So you're a smart guy, dude. Obviously you're in the lending space now, which we're going to talk about, but if you're not investing into these real estate assets, what are you investing into to preserve your wealth long term and get that appreciation?
Yep, absolutely. So that's why we've transitioned over into the lending space mainly. And I have, my own thoughts on this, and maybe someone will look back, on this 10 years from now and I was an idiot, but there are very few people who are making millions of dollars per year from cash flow on just residential or commercial units. Like obviously there's exceptions to the rules and big people in New York City with, skyscrapers and stuff with commercial, like making millions of millions.
The average person.
But the average Joe, like think about, if you are making, we would typically try to make $250 per month net per door. And so if you really want to go big and scale and make $1 million per year in pure cash flow, you're going to have hundreds of units. And the average person doesn't do that. And on top of that, you think about the amount of capital that you have to put in, whether it's down payments. I realize there's creative financing and sub-2 and all this stuff, but in the traditional sense, it is just a very capital intense business. And to acquire another property, you do have to have some liquid capital or cash. I think there are faster and easier ways to scale if strictly cash flow is your game. Faster and easier ways to make larger bits of wealth. I also believe that we just went through one of the biggest real estate booms in the history of the United States. I don't think that's going to happen for the foreseeable future, mainly because the feds are actively trying to combat that with inflation. I don't think we're going to see this insane appreciation year over year over year like we've had over the last 5 years. Again, it's any man's guess. I could be completely wrong, and you could come back and say I told you so, but that's my own personal belief.
No, it makes sense, dude. So if I'm the average person right now listening, and maybe I have the desire to start getting some properties, maybe start getting some multifamily, because that's what I've heard is the best way for me to gain my wealth. And instead of me going to spend it at a nightclub, I need to go put it into some type of long-term investment that's going to create wealth long-term. What would you recommend?
Sure. So we have a real estate debt fund. So we have an investment fund where we're still buying properties and we're renovating properties and flipping properties, but we've built a fund that's set up and regulated by the SEC. We take private capital from investors, and then we use that to deploy, and then you obviously get a flat rate of return. And the funny thing is, again, like hindsight is 20/20. So if I could go back in time and tell myself, just do this, like just invest in the fund, to be like, well, no, I kind of want to do it myself. Like I want to have the gratification of owning physical properties and doing all these things. But the thing that I tell people, and they kind of they don't like it when I say this, but I tell them, you're not that good. There are people like myself who do this professionally all day long. Like I look at deals that are just like insanely good deals that the average beginner would not even have access to. For example, about 3 months ago, we bought a 9-plex for $150,000. And people hear those numbers, are like, how did you have access to that? we've been doing it for a long time. We do this all day long professionally. So you're telling me that the person who was just doing this as a side hustle while still trying to work a W-2 job, I'm like, it's possible. You could find, if you know what you're doing and you're hustling and grinding, but just with the volume and the repetition and the number of deals that we're going through, you have access to a larger pool of really, really good properties.
So you're more on the syndication game at this point?
More or less. It's not really a syndication, just the sense that like typically a syndication is like you're taking multiple investors to buy one big apartment complex, whereas this is a fund that can kind of be used and deployed on multiple projects, but it's the same general concept.
Got it. So obviously two types of different investments out there. You have your active and your passive investment. I have a little bit of both in the real estate space and in a lot of things. The benefits of having passive investments, it sounds like what you're talking about, or a syndication, which I'm a part of, or a franchise that you put money in and you don't have anything to do with, is it's very hands-off. You collect the dividend typically every quarter, and hopefully you get a good, internal rate of return, 2, 3, 4, 5 years later, right? Yeah. That's the passive. You don't have to focus on anything. You can continue to focus on your cash flowing job to hopefully increase, the amount of money you're making by adding more value to the marketplace, right? That's the passive side. Then you have the active side, which is more hands-on. Maybe it's you own a single family or multifamily, right? Your experience for the first half of your real estate career, which is very hands-on. You're emotionally tied to it. But you know that, hey, if it's meant to be, it's up to me. You have full autonomy and control. From an active and a passive type of investment, what would you recommend to people? Is it a hybrid of both? Is it someone should lean into this a little bit more? What's your thoughts when it comes to that?
Yeah, so we have both. And the main reason for that is because, and this kind of plays into, the next part of our story is with like our software companies. A real estate portfolio is very good from an equity standpoint or cash flow standpoint, but as a business itself, it's difficult to sell that as a whole. And we kind of had this realization. I built my first software company. We built, and it was a small company, nothing crazy. But in 2022, we sold that it was a 6-figure exit. And when we did that, I learned a lot about enterprise value and multiples on selling a business. And so say, for example, like you have a business that is, making $100,000 a year in revenue, just easy numbers, you might get a 5, 6, 7x multiple on that business when you sell it. So running a business that makes $100,000 a year is not very difficult, but knowing that when you sell that, you're going to make $500,000, $600,000, $700,000, that's huge. And so I say all that to demonstrate that like we have a little bit of both. We have our active real estate investments, which are very good because they generate a lot of income now in the here and now, but it's very difficult to sell. It's not a sellable business. But the software companies are. And so while we're working on these, we're also working on this because of that enterprise value and building a company that can hopefully get a 12x multiple on a $10 million business, and then bam, you've got a $100 million company that you sell, which, people are just like, but like when you break it down, it's like, no, you need 1,000 customers at $1,000 a month, and then you have a $100 million company. Like it's very, very doable. Yeah.
The SaaS space is crazy. Bryce, walk me through this a little bit, because I definitely want to make sure the viewers can fully comprehend this. You got your hands in a lot of different things. Started in real estate, SaaS, money lender, right? The average person maybe listening to this, maybe they're in the direct sales industry, maybe they're in network marketing, maybe they run a small business, family business, whatever. To do one of the things that you've done over the last, handful of years, I think a lot of people are a little bit intimidated by. Was there a certain skill set or a certain mindset or a certain perspective that has allowed you to scale in multiple different sectors? Or what do you think that common denominator is, where maybe the average person struggles creating success in one, where you're over here with multiple different verticals and winning in all of them?
Yeah, there's two thoughts that come to mind. One, I heard a quote once that said, "You can't steer a parked car," and I really like that. You can't steer a parked car. And the other thing is you just have to get started. So the biggest thing is, like, let me take you back on a quick little timeline. So this goes back to the real estate, like with our rentals. So basically what happened was I had a couple of rentals and we were using QuickBooks for our accounting software. And I hated QuickBooks. It was annoying, mainly because like I wanted to see how the individual units, so like say you have 10 units, I wanted to see how the individual units were performing rather than my portfolio as a whole. Like I could see like, okay, we're profitable, but do we have some, dead weight that's kind of dragging us down? And so it's possible to do that in QuickBooks, but you have to do like this, the higher tier plan, which is like $60 a month. And you have to get these things called classes so that you can individually tag the individual units and break them out and have like a pro forma. And I was like, this is way too complicated. Like I just want to take all my expenses and categorize them by unit and just see whether I'm profitable or not. And I just felt like $60 a month was too expensive to do all this. I shouldn't have to pay $700 a year to figure that out. So I said, surely there's got to be a way to do this. There wasn't. And so I started a software company to be a QuickBooks competitor. It's called Rentastic. Obviously, we've since sold that. But a lot of people are like, whoa, how did you do that? But the thing is, I could not have started the software company if I hadn't gotten started in the rentals. And I'm all the way over here now with a couple of different software companies and the lending space and different things. But each one of these little tiny things has like played into the other things. So I could not have done all of these things here if I had not bought my first rental property. And so going back to, you can't steer a parked car, you just have to get started. But if you had asked me 12 years ago, like if I would have this big vision and this outlook of all the different things that we had done, no, of course not. It was like, I don't like my job and I don't want to do this for 40 years. How can I break out of this? And you start, and then from there, the opportunities open and you kind of pivot down different avenues.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great point. You don't have to see the whole staircase as take the first step.
You got it.
Most people realize like the thing you're currently doing now will probably lead you to the next thing. You may not know what it is. It may be completely off your radar, but as long as you're moving forward, like you said, in the path that you're passionate about or that is congruent with your vision, the people, places, and circumstances will then kind of yield to your demand.
Yes.
What would you say is your superpower when it comes to the business space? Because it seems like you're a good operator, but in terms of the SaaS, were you the guy that kind of paints the vision and then outsources? Obviously, I don't think you're a programmer or a tech guy.
I am actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah. I think it's also to my detriment. I would say one of my superpowers is just like action. Like I don't get stumbled up over like overthinking this too much, or like I'm just like, let's just get moving. Let's just, again, you can't steer a parked car. Like let's just drive down a path, and this road may dead end, but I'm going to find out a lot faster than if I pulled out my map and looked on Google Maps and did all the things and like check the elevate, like just start moving and then you can pivot from there.
Action.
Yeah. Action. Like just time to action. I think people just take too long and overthink things.
With you having your hands in a lot of different things, and especially when you're starting out some of these businesses, what strategies did you have to make sure you were productive and not active? Everyone kind of talks about the 20-80 rule, 20% of your actions and create 80% of the actual result. Were you mindful of that during the journey of some of these companies, or did you just go straight massive action and just fail forward, fall on your face until things started working?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that we did. I think it was like you just kind of fail forward and you get back up, and as long as you don't quit, like you'll keep winning. But I would say that we did spin our wheels a lot. We were just like, I don't know if this is the right thing, but again, time to action. Like we iterated so quickly that by the time most people had even failed once, we had failed 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times, and we had tried a lot of different paths. And again, I think now that's kind of to our detriment, and that's one thing that I do want to focus on is like entrepreneurs get rewarded by trying a lot of different things. Like for example, you leave your job and you jump off on this path to starting this new thing, and you get like this big dopamine rush and this hit. And for too long, I played into that because I would start all these new different things, but I wouldn't put enough time into them to let them develop and cultivate and really grow into something large. And so now that's something that we're focusing on now is like, I'm in a big season of no, is that we are not doing anything other than lending and software. That is it. Like I am saying no to every other opportunity because focus has been such a difficult thing for us, because I see, shiny, and I want to try this and I want to try that. But I think all too often, big things don't happen on small timelines. And that has been a huge huge downfall of mine, is that I just haven't been focused enough.
Yeah, with all the opportunity out there, I mean, you can go on social media and get blasted by 30 different people with these different investments and opportunities and companies and drop shipping and crypto coins and everything, that it's extremely overwhelming, and complexity is the enemy of execution sometimes. When you have all these different decisions, sometimes you just don't take any action, or you're trying to do all these different things. I see that so much in my industry, where there's so many different people trying to do this and do this and do this, and they'll justify the average millionaire has 7 streams of income. It's like, yeah, but they had one solid stream first. They went for mastery over one thing, and then that stream led to all these different streams because they had the leisure of being able to diversify.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You don't win by juggling 7 plates. You don't. And like I said, that has been something that's been our downfall, just because I have started, it's been great being in the development space, because, I can have an idea, and then, in 2.7 seconds, I can have a website up and build an app and all these different things. So it's good, but if I would just stop and slow down and be like, is this going to be the thing? Like, focus on the right thing, that's really what's going to lead to the big exit or whatever it may be.
Bryce, do you think you need to love what you do in order to be successful at it?
No, but I think it helps. Absolutely. I think it helps. I have had companies where initially I liked what I was doing, and then after a while you kind of fall out of love with it, and you're like, I'm doing this for 3, 4, 5 years, don't really want to do this anymore. I think that there's some wisdom in knowing whether it's time to pivot or whether it's time to push through. And when it comes down to loving what you do, I think that makes that decision easier. If, say for example, like you're doing something in the medical space and you don't have really, like, yes, it may be a good opportunity, but if you don't have a medical background, or that's not something that like you were raised with, or your father wasn't a doctor, something you just like, oh, there's a need here, like, let me fulfill this. It's going to be way harder than, ooh, I like doing this thing and I see a gap in the market, let me cater to that. This person's going to be way more successful. It's like, everybody knows that they need to go to the gym and work out, but the person who enjoys going to the gym and working out, they're going to be way more successful than the person who's doing it out of obligation to their health.
Well said, dude. Let's talk about money.
Let's do it.
I'm Jewish, so, money is something that is in my lineage. You're obviously in the lending space, so you know a lot about it. What do millennials need to know about money?
Ooh. The thing that drives me crazy is we spend our whole lives working for money, and yet we never take the time to stop and think about how money works. It's just like, it makes no sense. Why would you spend 50 years of your life working for something and not understanding how it works? And it's not, at the end of the day, it's really not that difficult. Like when you think about, like, don't spend more than you have, like, save, invest, like it's very like foundational, fundamental principles. But like credit card debt is at an all-time high right now, like it's very concerning. And so all these people that don't understand how money works, but you spend your whole life working for it. So I would say, learn the basics, learn the fundamentals. You think about any professional sports player, like they never don't do the basics. Like you never don't do your free throws or your warm-ups or whatever it is. Like these basketball players that are doing thousands of free throws just in practice, or, Tiger Woods, who hits 10,000 balls per week. It's just like the repetition over and over and over. Understand how it works, and you'll be way more successful.
Yeah, money is such an interesting concept because I think it's getting less taboo, but it's such an important thing that controls so much of our life. And I think that anyone says money's not important, well, you're probably not living in America. You're probably living in Bali or something like that, where things are $1, which, trust me, I want to live in Bali too, but great. maybe in another season. But it's so important because it allows you to do the things that are extremely important. It allows you to take care of your family. It allows you to have a piece of security. One of the best quotes I've heard about money is, it's not the most important thing in the world, but it's right up there with oxygen. When you have it, it's like, cool, things are fine. But when you don't have it, all you want is, money. So do you think that America, or I guess our generation, has a saving problem or a earning problem, because the stats alone kind of tell you where we're at as a country. In one of the most abundant countries in the world, the average person still doesn't have $1,000 in their bank account. The average person still living paycheck to paycheck. The average person still has $40,000 in credit card debt, and student loan debt's through the roof. Like, the statistics are not on our side. What is the big issue? Is it a spending? Is it a saving? Or is it a combination of both?
I think definitely a combination. I would say if I was to pick one or the other, I would say definitely spending, simply because it's never been easier to get into debt.
Freaking Amazon,
dude. Yeah, you just have to have a pulse, and you'll get a credit card, or you walk on college campuses and there's pop-up tents with people offering kids who have no concept of anything credit cards, but I think it's not necessarily just money. I think it's just overindulging in general. I mean, yes, we have high levels of credit card debt, but we also have really high levels of obesity. I think it's just like the restraint is not there in every aspect of everything. And so in my own opinion, I think like the secret to life really is consistency and self-restraint. Like in anything that you do, like if you can just reel it in. And like this is a really dumb example, but it's something that I need to work on, is like I'm a big like caffeine connoisseur, like I have to restrain myself from having like a second or third energy drink in the day. Like I love caffeine. But I know that like if I have 3 energy drinks, like my heart's going to explode and I'm going to have heart palpitations, so it, again, stupid example, but just like, I think in anything that you do, like just have a little bit of self-restraint. Easier said than done, right? But I think it goes a long way.
Delayed gratification is a superpower.
That's it.
Yeah, dude, it's so easy to buy things. Like I could just find myself late at night on Amazon, just like, I don't need this, but boom, here tomorrow. Done. And it's crazy, dude. And I think it's people talking about it a lot, but our whole generation is just the instant gratification is just, it's so ingrained into us. And I can't even imagine the next generation that's grown up on smartphones and technology. Like their restraint is probably completely through the roof. What's the solution? Like if I'm sitting here right now, maybe I'm in my 20s or early 30s, and maybe I'm not happy with my financial situation. Maybe I'm not happy with my professional trajectory. Maybe I did the college thing and I did what my parents told me to do, but now I'm in student loan debt and I'm not making as much and my boss yells at me, but they're not actually taking action. Like, what would you tell those people to take the first step to maybe have a little bit more peace of mind, have a little bit more freedom, and start to build that financial independence?
This has worked for me. I think just by nature, it probably is easier for me because I do feel like I'm just a fairly motivated person. Like most of the time I can just kind of overcome that just like intrinsic laziness that most people have. But multiple times a day, I will ask myself, is this the easy thing or is this the hard thing? And I have to constantly remind myself to choose hard. And more often than not, choosing hard is the correct path. Is it easier to stay at home and sit on the couch or go to the gym? Obviously, like it's more difficult to go to the gym. You should probably go to the gym. That may not work for some people, but it works for me. And I, again, over and over, like in my mind, I just ask myself, is this the easy thing? Is this the hard thing? Choose hard. Well
said, dude. Do hard things. If you do in life what is easy, your life's going to be hard. If you do in life what is hard, your life's going to be easy.
You got it.
Most people choose the easy route their whole life, and then they pay with their health, they pay with their financial security, they pay with their peace of mind. Choose hard things, and good things will happen. Let's talk a little bit about leverage and debt.
Okay.
I'm curious your perspectives on these things. You have the Grant Cardone type-ish people that are all about, stay broke, maximum leverage. And then on the other side of the coin, you have the Dave Ramsey that says never finance a car. Where do you land on these topics? And what do you think people need to know about it coming from a real estate lending background?
Yeah. I can't stand Grant Cardone personally.
Most people can't.
But I also can't stand Dave Ramsey. So I think there's some middle of the road thing, but also I don't want to downplay, and it's funny, like I'll post things, like I'll post reels and stuff, and I kind of shit on Dave Ramsey more than I should, but
I'm sure he doesn't mind.
He doesn't even know who I am, so he doesn't care. I struggle with it because I don't resonate with Grant Cardone, but you can't write off the fact that he hasn't done crazy cool things. You know, like he's clearly doing something right to have the fame and the wealth and the notoriety, everything that he's done. So there's absolutely something to say about that. That being said, Dave Ramsey, same thing. I don't resonate with that because I don't want to have this like miser, scrimp and save mindset. I'm more of an abundance. But there's valid points in both camps. That being said, I am very comfortable with risk, like probably more so than most people. And the bigger thing, like my wife cringes when I say this, but I'll say often, like, I have been broke. I can be broke again. Like the standard is not to have a home and to live in an apartment and have kind of a dumpy rundown car. And like, I've been there before and it really wasn't that bad. Like at the time, like, it's like, okay, this is life. Like, would I like something else? Sure. Would I love to drive something nicer? Sure. But like, I have been broke. I could live in an apartment again. I could lose everything and build it back. So all that to say, there's a time to sprint and there's a time to take risks. And then once you've kind of like gotten your first nest egg, then you can be a little bit more conservative and be in wealth preservation mode. As far as debt and leverage, I'm very much anti consumerism and consumer debt, but I'm not at all anti business debt and leverage and, you know, for good debt. And I think most people probably fall into that camp, at least the listeners of your show.
Yeah, I really like what you said there because I think there's two sides of that conversation. You hear a lot of people say like, hey, you should be fearful of being broke. You should be fearful of poverty because that will motivate you to continue to be on the grind and create so much space from that old life into the new life. But I really like what you said. I think there's a power that comes with surrendering, accepting the worst case scenario that allows you to have the courage, the faith, and the confidence to move forward with that risk tolerance that you talked about. Tell me a little bit about that because I think that's really interesting. So you leverage the fact that, hey, life's not going to be so bad if this doesn't work out, which gives you a level of peace and a level of comfort. And since you're operating out of faith and abundance, usually that thing's going to work out versus the person that's so scared to make that decision and they're hoarding their money, they're hoarding their wealth, they're hoarding that opportunity, which therefore you'll attract that negativity as well.
Yep. I mean, I think about what is the worst possible scenario? Like really, truly, like if shit hit the fan today, we lost everything. Probably what would happen is like we would either move in with my in-laws or move in with my parents. And of course I don't want that to happen, but like you're not going to be living on the street. You're not going to be begging for food. You're not going to like not have a heat source. Like you can go to Goodwill and get $3 shoes, you know, like you can work a minimum wage job. You can work at McDonald's and like, you know, like it's really not that bad. We live in America. Like it's our bad is still pretty great.
Standard's pretty high.
Yes. And so when I think of it like that, I'm like, would it be fun? No. But knowing what I know now, I'd be able to rebound and bounce off my feet in no time at all.
So that's the worst case scenario is that floor. The best case scenario though is infinite possibility. And that's what I really want to get people to understand. There's so many people that are scared to maybe take that jump. Maybe they have this opportunity, but they're scared to leave their current job or they want to move to this new city or this new town, but they're so comfortable in where they're at because of fear paralyzes them to make that leap of faith, but it's because they're not really looking at what the worst case scenario in most cases for most people, can't speak for everyone, really isn't that bad if you actually extrapolate it, but the upside, the possibility will literally change your life.
Yes. There are very few things in life that are so permanent that you can't reverse, you know, like outside of like murder, you know, like there's really like not too many things that you can't bounce back from. And I think when you think of things through that lens, the world, I don't know, the possibilities open.
Have you always had this kind of abundance mindset? Like, you know, over the last 45 minutes of us talking, you have seems like you have a very high EQ. It seems like you have a very abundance mindset that, hey, things will work out. Have you always had that? Or was there some shift that you needed to do maybe from your childhood and getting into your adult life?
There's been some work, you know, like absolutely on mindset and belief. I feel like I have had more of an abundance mindset than most. But, you know, like when you don't have a lot, it's very is very tempting just to like protect what little you do have. So when we just started out, absolutely, I was very concerned about that. But when I saw a clip from Dean Graziosi the other day. I don't know if you saw that one, but he was talking about wealth and, basically what it was like to be as wealthy as he is, a billionaire. And he said, if somebody is holding your head underwater, the one thing you're going to think about is oxygen. But when you're sitting in a room and it's all around you, it's the last thing you think about. You literally don't even like worry about it. And so it's the same thing, like when you're in these different periods of your entrepreneurial journey or whatever it is, whatever you lack, that's what you're going to focus on. And you're going to have this scarcity mindset. But as soon as you have some level of success, it kind of changes and you become just more aware of other problems in the world, either with yourself or your family or other things that you need to focus on. And it's not so much about the money. I do still like, very, very candidly, I still chase the money. Absolutely. 100%. Because it feels like a game to me and I want to get the high score. And I like doing that. I also think, I was thinking about, recently well, I guess not recently, but with Elon buying Twitter. There were, I can't remember what the number is, but it was like $50 billion or something that he had to come up with to buy Twitter.
Which he way overpaid.
Sure, totally. But the funny thing is, I'm sure there have been many people out in the world that says he's the richest man on the planet. He doesn't need more money. But I guarantee you, when he was having to do all of, like, you sell his Tesla stock and these backdoor like deals to make, get the revenue to be able to do this, I'm sure he thought to himself, damn, if only I had more money. I guarantee it. He was like, if it would be so nice if I didn't have to worry about this, VC firm that I have to do and they get this percentage. Like, it'd be a nightmare. And I'm sure he thought, if only I had more money. So I don't believe that there's ever enough. I think that is a mindset thing that we do probably need to change that. But it's just kind of that hedonistic treadmill of being a human being that you always need more. And I don't think that ever goes away.
Yeah, it's all relative.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. I really like what you said about the rentals. You came to a point where you had this goal that you achieved and realized it's actually the opposite what you wanted. So you had to make a bit of a pivot. My question for you, Bryce, as you continue to level up financially and you climb the ladder of success and your SaaS companies go well, this lending company goes well, all the things, is there anything that you are doing to make sure that you are avoiding feeling that same feeling that you felt when you achieved your rental goal with any of your future financial goals?
That's a really good question. I honestly have not thought about that. And I think that probably comes from, just some internal work that needs to be done. But also, going back to just being human, I think the goalpost always moves. And so, there's a quote I heard, I can't remember who said it, but he said, what was it? He said, you have already achieved goals that you said would make you happy. You've already achieved goals that you said would make you happy. I'll be happy when I get married, when I have the house, when I have the car, when. And then you get there and you always want something else. So when I have, like, my current goal, I do want to have a $100 million exit. I think that would be just amazing. When I get there, I'm sure I'll realize, well, it's kind of small potatoes. That doesn't it's just the goalpost always moves. And so, no, I don't think I have prepared for that. And I think that's something that I probably do need to work on.
The fulfillment versus achievement conversation is always so funny, because you have these big goals, these BHAGs, these vision, this accomplishment, and then you get it. It feels good for a little bit, and then you're kind of back onto that next thing, right? Same grind, same mentality, where it's almost kind of like that Buddha philosophy of trying to be complete and full with what you have. So as you continue to get these external things, they can't give or take away. It's a journey that I've been on as well. And I think that's kind of where the spiritual side of some of this comes on. But it's always so interesting. I love hearing entrepreneurs' mindset who are on this pursuit of wealth and abundance and where their relationship comes with fulfillment and also being present and at peace while they're on the journey of what they're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, I absolutely need to work on that. We've had kind of a shift recently in like our religious and spiritual beliefs, which we can talk about if you want. But like I said, I think I think that's definitely something that I need to focus on and just realize like, what's the end goal? Is there really a point to all of that? So
100%, dude. Dude, it's been freaking great. We're wrapping up here. One of my last questions for you is, if you could go back in time with everything that you know now, all the experience, all the failures, all the accomplishments, all the success, and go back to your teenage self, your college self, what advice would the Bryce today tell the past Bryce to help accelerate his journey, his joy, his wealth, and his success?
Buy Bitcoin. Just kidding.
Dude, I think we all would.
I think everyone says that, but I think I've already touched on it. Is the focus? Like I think any business or any goal or whatever can be this big, massive thing as long as you just focus on it forever. And so if I could go back and like any of these other past businesses that I've had, they could be humongous, they could be massive, but I didn't give enough time and effort into developing them as I probably should have. And so I tell people now, like if there's any business or something that you're wanting to pursue, make sure that you can commit to this for 10 years and not change and not pivot. Like, can you really do this for a decade? And if you can't, maybe this isn't the right thing.
The long-term game, dude.
That's it.
What is your perspective? I'm curious. You brought it up about crypto, being in the lending space and obviously being an investor and having your hands in a lot of different spaces. Talk to me about crypto a little bit.
Yeah, I really haven't done much with crypto. But I think, we've kind of already touched on it. Like you can do anything, but you can't do everything. There are people who are very successful with day trading. That's not my space, but if you learn the graphs and the charts and the trends and you can become very, very wealthy and very successful from day trading. Same thing with crypto, like you can buy into the hype and buy a Tua coin or whatever it was with Hawk Tua.
Yeah.
You can make a lot of money doing that too, but that's just not my game. I don't know anything about it. And so I don't touch it, but there's absolutely wealth to be generated there.
Well said, dude. Don't invest things you don't know shit about.
That's right. Love it.
Bryce, it's been awesome, dude. Where can people get connected if they want to get in touch with you, follow your content, and maybe, become a client of your lending company?
Sure. Yeah. Probably Instagram's the easiest way. Just at Bryce Matheson. That's Bryce with a Y. And then also we do have a podcast. It's called the Lender Podcast. It's LENDR, Lender Podcast. We just talk about lending and real estate and current state of the market and all that. So, yeah, if you're interested in learning more about lending, probably one of those. And feel free to hit me up. I'm always happy to answer questions or anything I can.
All important stuff. Guys, definitely get connected with Bryce. Definitely an expert in the field. If you like the episode, like, trust, and comment. And we'll see you guys on the next episode. Peace.